Hello, this is Demon Phoenix with part 2 of my Dead Space 2 hardcore recap. Again, this is focusing mostly on how I upgrade and looking out for some of the more tricky bits in the game. So, last time we were finishing off with the Plasma Cutter and the Ripper. Now, the first thing you'll have in Chapter 7, which is of any difficulty, is this lift sequence with the tripods. As you can see there, I like to put up the sensitivity as high as you can have it, and then set the aiming to center. So for this I'll be using the Plasma Cutter. The first one always comes out on this second window to the right of the door. So if you have the sensitivity set as high as you can handle it, you can just continuously spin round and look for the tripods as they're coming out. So you can just try and hit them with a few things. This is why I kept a few stacks of ammo to be able to take out of the safe and use for this bit. So we've got plenty of ammo and plenty of medkits as well. You will get hit occasionally, so unless you're very good, so just make sure you keep a couple of med packs and quick heal as soon as you need to, and if they gang up on you with a couple of them, make sure that you use stasis. So it might be an idea to have a stasis pack or two and just keep them at bay. Try and stay in the middle because you're as far away from all of them as possible, and if you take any damage, just quick heal. Once you've got through that, you've got a little bit to progress through, and after you've cleared out this room on the top and the bottom, there is a bench available, and this is where I like to respec. So you don't have to respec, you can stick with either the Plasma Cutter or the Pulse Rifle or whatever your main weapon has been. But for me, because a lot of the Black Necros are the main enemies from now on, and they take a lot more Plasma Cutter and Pulse Rifle bullets, those weapons become considerably weaker. So what I do is I keep 5,000 credits and then another 11,000 to be able to buy the Javelin Gun, and I buy the Javelin Gun and respec the nodes. So instead of having to upgrade it from scratch, you're just taking those 20 nodes out of the Plasma Cutter and putting them into the Javelin Gun. Now you want as many as possible along the bottom, getting the special in the middle, because that's the main thing where the javelins explode. You can also do a few other things, like get a couple of other damage upgrades on the Ripper if you can afford it with the nodes, and then maybe start on your stasis as well. If you're using the Javelin Gun, I would just say that you have to be very conscious of how the ammo works. I didn't used to like the Javelin Gun because the ammo drops are very rare. You only get one spear per drop. But the point of it is that the ammo is so cheap that you can buy tons of it, and 2 spears kills any Black Necro. So you just shoot it and then you do the electricity secondary fire, and then whenever you let go, the electricity stops, and if you have the special upgrade, it explodes, and that kills a Black Necro in one. So you always have 30 spears, and every time you get to a new store, you just stock up on spears if you're using the Javelin Gun, so you always have 30. This room is potentially tricky. This is supposed to be a demonstration of it, but I actually do a pretty poor job if I'm honest. So what you have to look out for here is there's a couple of lurkers first. As you go over here, there's a Black Necro climbs over the side, and if your aim isn't terrible like mine is here, you can just tag him and then hit him. One thing with the Javelin Gun is with those rate of fire, it does fire surprisingly quickly, so you can just keep shooting like that. I just ran past a couple of stasis pods there, and you should actually grab one of those and use it to take on these lurkers. But don't be afraid to use stasis or anything like that, and just make sure you can sort them out. So after you've taken out the leapers, they're leapers not lurkers, do beg your pardon, you've got a couple more of the babies to take out, and then when you've done those, make sure that you have a node spare. It's very important that you get penged when you're playing on hardcore, which is the puzzle just before this, and there are other YouTube videos showing how to do that. And the reason you want to get penged is because you get a lot of extra money to put on nodes to put towards upgrades, and also the node will let you get into this room and get the contact beam schematic. I buy the contact beam at the next store. I always buy it as soon as possible. It's a fantastic weapon and extremely useful. Now this can be an extremely difficult room because you get locked in, and it starts off with pack and a normal necro, and then after you kill those you get all sorts of nasty things. So you get pukers coming in, you get regular necros mixed in with leapers, and the leapers in particular can be really troublesome. But as you saw there, if you just have full health, make sure you can run as fast as you can, and you can just do laps. So you just run laps of this, and because you are on a timer because of the oxygen, you don't have to kill all the enemies for Ellie to open the door. She will just open the door after you get to about 50 seconds of health left if you've not had any air upgrades. So that one necro jumps out whilst you're running away from the pack, and as you can see, I just stasised him and then carry on running. So you just run all the way around this. Credit to Major Slack, who is a YouTuber, and I saw this years ago on his guide, so that was really cool. But when Ellie actually gets to this sort of dialogue where you're running to about getting towards 50 seconds, she will open the door. So because there's only the pack and one necro chasing you, you can use a Ripper blade and just take them all out and get a bit of extra money and ammo as well. Grab all that stuff and then make a break for it, and before any of the nastier necros can turn up, you can do that there. and that really helps. So one of the things that you need to look out for after that is you can get the vintage suit, which is in a node room, just following on from this bit, and then there's a bench just before you go through the worry death machinery that you have to float through. And this is where I like to focus on a couple of other upgrades. So try and make sure that you've got the Ripper damage as high as possible. You don't have to focus on capacity or anything like that. Focus on keeping the weapons high and starting to upgrade your stasis a bit, but if you can get 7 nodes, I would always put them into the contact beam, alternate fire and special. The contact beam alternate fire is really useful because it hits all around, and when it's upgraded it does tons of damage, and the special fire is incredible. It applies a really long stasis effect to everything that it hits around, and that comes into play later in the game and is just generally a fantastic weapon when you start to level it up. A bit later on in chapter 9 you'll have Divider, and again if you have put those special upgrades into the contact beam, you can use the secondary to apply those stasis. You can see how long it lasts for, and then you can use the Ripper to take it out. So this is takes 2 Ripper blades. It normally only even takes 1, but that's very little to be able to take out the Divider with minimum fuss. And then coming immediately after this is an extremely difficult room. It's very small, and it has one of the airlocks where if you hit the glass it blows you out into space, and you don't have very long to be able to hit it, so you have to be really careful. Now if you have a powerful weapon like we're using the upgraded Ripper here, you make a break for the right of the room, and when the black necro jumps down you take it out, and then very quickly turn and focus on the exploder. Now you don't want the exploder to use its explosive arm, so take it out with the safest means necessary, and there is a node and a ruby semiconductor there just to grab, so make sure you get those as well. That room's really dangerous, so practice it on Zealot first. Following on from that bit, we've got, this is the section after you get the tram and meet up with Ellie and Stross, and after you get that back and the tram stops, I will always use on my regular playthrough I used a second save here. Now that's because this room can be extremely dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, and the lurkers, stalkers, can be a bit unpredictable. So if you trigger the first one and then come back like this, there is the stasis there to be able to kill it, and then you can get to the back of the room and use the javelin or whatever your main weapon is to get through that room. Towards the end of chapter 9 you've got this section here. You're supposed to use these to destroy the floating tank up there, but if you throw them over the edge it makes the next bit easier, because these restock and you can just take the 4 explosives that you need for there out of the thing on the side of the wall, and that gives you these 2 that you've just thrown over the side to make this bit a bit easier. If you come a bit further to the left than I actually am here, you'll see why when I actually messed this up, because I hit the tripod, but as soon as you start shooting the tanks at the explosive there, the tripod will drop down. So if you make sure you're holding the contact beam, you can actually very quickly fire 4 of those, and this is where I mess it up a bit because I actually hit the tripod, which you don't want to do. But if you stand right back here, when the tripod leaps it won't hurt you. Then you can hit it with the contact beam and take out one of its arms, and they're much less dangerous when you've got 1 arm. So that one actually died, and each time you kill one you'll see that another one drops in. So this is how you would normally deal with the single tripod. When it jumps at you, use the contact beam secondary, and then use either the Ripper or the Javelin Gun to take out its arm, and then stasis it afterwards, and that makes it a lot easier to deal with and gives you time to grab the tanks. After you've exploded the tank with enough shots that it takes, you can also grab a ruby semiconductor there. So this will set you up. You've got the Javelin Gun, and we'll be moving on to chapter 10. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be doing part 3 and 4 to finish off. Thank you.